Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Sunday morning. Hopefully, it's beautiful when you're watching this. Um, Fall is definitely here. We've got a little bit of briskness in the air. Loving it. Anyway, a couple of things to go over. Today is our Mission Sunday, so you know the drill. You can go to thefathershouse.org, click on the giving button, set it up as a one-time gift, recurring gift. You can give to missions that way. I know Pastor Juan and Pastor Patricia in Argentina appreciate every dollar that goes there. They've been holding Bible studies on Saturdays, and they have a lot of little kids, and they feed them. So any proceeds we send to them is used for that in this time. So, and greatly appreciated. Same here at the Father's House. Everything that you give is greatly appreciated. You can mail a check to the Father's House at 133 Bernal Road, San Jose, California 95119, or you can come to church on Sunday and drop it in our offering boxes that way. Our men's group is meeting on Monday nights here at the Father's House and at 6:30 on Zoom also. They're going through the book of on Dietrich Bonhoeffer by Eric Metaxas. And I have to say, he's one of my favorite authors. I've been reading one of his books now, and I'm kind of obsessed by it too. So I'm kind of jealous that the guys are getting to go through it. It's a great book. I've read it. I loved it. So I hope they get a lot out of that. Our ladies group is meeting here on Thursdays at 11 o'clock at the Father's House. And also we meet 6:30 Thursday nights on Zoom. We're going through the book Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, and it's a really good study. We've had some really good discussions. So if you want to be a part of that, we'd love to have you join us. I think that's really all I have to cover today. So I guess we'll turn the time over to Pastor Carl.
Well, good morning, Father's House. How are you guys today? A great day outside, a great weather. What more can you ask for? Just beautiful time of year for all of us. Fall is in the air. Man, it just feels good, doesn't it? Just really, 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 really nice. Although this week coming is going to warm up a little bit here in San Jose. Not a lot. I think it's going to be in the high 70s and 80s rather than in the mid 70s. I guess there's not that much difference, but there's enough that's there. It's perfect painting weather for outdoor painting of different things. Matter of fact, Patty and I are replacing some trim on our house and doing some painting of it. If you feel the urge and you want to stop by and join us, we can always put a paintbrush in your hand. Trust me, we'll do that. But anyway, that maybe is for another time. Just not maybe you don't want to do that. Guilt you into doing it, nothing else. That's about it. And other than we're just on our way. Penny talked about the men's group getting into Bonhoeffer. We're just getting started. We're just going to take it. It's a long book. It's about 600 pages plus. And it's kind of like, it can look daunting, but it's a pretty straightforward biography of his life and some discussions that we'll be having. So if you want to join us, it's not too late to join, and it will be a really good time. It'll be a special time. But that being said, if not, I understand. So what else is there to talk about? I don't know. We could talk about the weather. Oh, we could talk about all kinds of different things coming up. Christmas will be coming up soon already. Thanksgiving, even though we don't want to think Thanksgiving is upon us. What's today? Today is what, the 20th? And so, man, we're just talking, it's coming. But let's see what we got coming up. We've got election coming up, we got Thanksgiving coming up, and then we've got Christmas. So here comes kind of a busy season for all of us. Isn't that true? Oh, and Halloween's in there if you guys are doing anything for that. Well, I guess we can go on to talking about kind of the extension of what I was talking about last week. Actually, if you wanted to look at our live stream video, I kind of went in a little bit more detail on what I was talking about, although it was a little bit more complicated and complex. And I want to see if I can't dummy it down for myself this time. Einstein said, if you can't explain something simply, you don't know it well enough. So I'm going to go back to seeing if I can kind of bring some of these abstractions that I've been talking about and see if I can't kind of make them a little bit more relatable. I guess you could call it concrete, although that's kind of a weird word to use these days. So we're kind of talking about the difference between natural wisdom, human wisdom, and the wisdom of God, right? That's what we're kind of been talking about. And we're asking ourselves as Christians, how is it that we view the world? We started with John chapter 3. We were in John 3 for a long time. We're going back to John 3 after I get through a little bit more of this section in the book of First Corinthians, where Paul, in the first four chapters, is kind of laying out I think it could be argued his epistemology, right? Or his, basically his justified true belief. Epistemology is the theory of knowledge or that which is justified true belief. And when you're talking about a belief system, that is valid, that is a good system to work off of, it's always got justification. You can make a good argument for why you believe it. It's always true. There's a level of truth and not deception in it. And you're open to the truth and modifying your epistemology based on other knowledge that comes your way. And then it also becomes a belief because it's justifiable and it's true. Therefore, it becomes a belief. And then out of that belief, then you're able to articulate kind of what your stance is regarding the way that you view reality, the way you view anything. And so we're kind of talking about the idea of, if we went back to the Gospel of John, of how do we know that when our acts are wrought in God or our deeds are wrought in God, they're birthed of God, they're forged in God. And we kind of then took this hiatus into Paul, where now we're kind of talking about, well, there's this part of it where we're kind of talking about the difference between natural knowledge and the wisdom of God and how that kind of comes into play and will come back into play, kind of in an odd way. I've got to take it a roundabout way, and we'll go back and look at a few of the statements that Jesus makes in John chapter 3 that we haven't really addressed. We could read them, but I didn't address them. I'm going to come back and address those here in the next couple of weeks. So let's just go to the text. Let's go to First Corinthians chapter 2 this time. We kind of overworked or did work chapter 1 for the last 2 weeks, and we're going to just spend, I think, 2 weeks on chapter 2 as well. So we're in First Corinthians and chapter 2, and we're going to talk, as Paul is talking more about the distinction between human wisdom and the wisdom of God. And so I came to you, brethren, verse 1. I did not come to you with superiority of speech or of wisdom, proclaiming to you the testimony of God. For I determined to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified. Oh, hang on. I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. And my message and my preaching were not in persuasive words of wisdom, but in a demonstration of the Spirit and of power, so that your faith would not rest in the wisdom of men, but on the power of God. Yet we do not speak a wisdom among those who are mature, a wisdom, however, not of this age, nor of the rulers of this age, who are passing away. But we speak God's wisdom in a mystery, the hidden wisdom which God predestined before the ages to our glory. The wisdom which none of the rulers of this age understood. For if they had understood it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. But just as written, things which eye has not seen and ear has not heard, and which has not even entered the hearts of men, all that God has prepared for him or for those that love him. For to us God revealed them through the Spirit, for the Spirit teaches all things, even the depths of God. Okay, so let's look at that text for a minute. I'm going to boil this down to the ridiculous, so I'm not going to be long today as we begin to work through this text. So here's kind of what it is that Paul wants to say. He wants to say, look, I didn't come to you with superior speech and in persuasive words because I didn't want your faith in God to rest in the wisdom of men, but I want your faith to rest in the power of God. That's basically what he's saying. So what he's saying is, or what he has said is, there's a distinction and a difference between human wisdom and between wisdom that is the wisdom of God. And he makes that very clear. So when we're talking about what we've been talking about here in Second Corinthians, the idea of epistemology, which is true, justifiable belief. That's what that kind of what it means. Is that what we believe is justifiable. We have a good argument for it. It's true. It's not made up of myths and fables and different things, and therefore it's true, justified belief or justified true belief. It has all of those different components to it. And so the Apostle Paul's saying, look, there's always two ways to look at everything. So we can look at things through human eyes, or we can look at things through um, the way God sees it, because He's given us the Holy Spirit to reveal things to us. So let's talk about the human side for just a minute. So the human side is the concept, and really kind of where our society now lives today. It's the concept of science will answer everything, or it's what we call scientism, or we could call it material humanism. God doesn't exist. Everything that we need to know about the cosmos, science will eventually prove, or eventually make clear to us. And so we don't even need the idea of a God, because we can figure this out on our own. So there's this demarcation that's happened in our society where basically we've separated the two, and we basically said, in our postmodern society, we don't we no longer as a society need God, so we can cast God aside, and what we'll do is just move forward in our own human wisdom. Now, as much as that's true in our time, it's obviously true that Paul was kind of making the same argument some 2,000 years ago. And but then Paul begins to turn it around, and this is what he says. He says, I didn't come to you in cleverness of speech, in the wisdom of men, in arguing why God does or doesn't exist, and not arguing from science, because that's not where the Christian faith is found. Our faith is found in this. Our faith is found in a God that's a living God. And being a living God, He has an interpersonal relationship with anybody that opens himself up to it. There's a relationship with that person, to anybody that opens up to God. And as we begin to open up to God, God promises to send us His Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit comes into us to reveal truth to us, and also to work in our life to make us more like Christ. So the Apostle Paul is saying here to the Corinthian church, who are very immature Christian believers, I didn't come in persuasive words. I didn't come projecting all the things that I could project on social media. I could put together all the memes. I could put together all the prophecies. I could talk about all those different things. I can make complex arguments. I didn't come to you by means of that, because none of that is where the Christian rests his faith. Place that the Christian rests their faith is simply in this, that God, through the Holy Spirit, reveals Himself to us. And as we say yes to God, He promises to put wisdom in us. But not only does He begin to create wisdom in us by the working of His Holy Spirit over time, but there's a certain presence or power that the Holy Spirit is in us and is evident to us. And because we've had these religious experiences with God, our faith doesn't rest on what man can tell us about God. Our faith ultimately rests on the fact that we've had this divine encounter, a personal divine encounter with God, to which we're testifying to you is the mystery of God and the wisdom of God. Now, he goes on to say in the text that I read that natural man cannot reveal this to you. Natural man, or natural thinking, human thinking, can't reveal the things of God, because human thinking doesn't find its mind in the divine mind. Human thinking is only thinking with the human mind. But how can the human mind know what the spirit is thinking? How can the human mind even understand the spiritual mind, which is not a part of, or it's not participating with? So the Apostle Paul is saying a Christian finds its faith. A Christian finds its true justifiable belief in its relationship and experience with a personal God that has interacted with us by way of experience, and by which way we give testimony that God has changed our life. Last week on our in our not in this video that we're doing here, but on the live stream, I told a story at the end of that service, about how I had this experience with God on outside or by a baseball diamond where my father had passed away. I made the point that I had this experience with God, and that experience with God changed the trajectory of my life for the rest of my life when I said yes to God, responded to God, and took the appropriate actions to walk in the direction that I knew He wanted me to go. That experience in changing my life is my testimony as to why I find the wisdom that I need to live my life, not in human wisdom, which I don't want to discount, but I find it in a different source. The source of all Christian knowing begins with our relationship with God. All that we look at in the world should be interpreted by and through the wisdom that God has given us by His Spirit and by way of revelation. That's kind of it in a nutshell of what I want to talk about. I said I wasn't going to be long today, but I want you to think about the difference between the wisdom of man and the wisdom of God. And the church in this day and age has gotten so off into all of this science and into all of this different stuff that we've forgotten that our knowing, the base of operation by which we live our lives, which means intellectually, emotionally, and morally, we find centered in the wisdom of God, not the wisdom of man. I hope you'll think about it. I know there's not much there, but there's a lot that's there as well. God bless you. Have a great day, and I'll see you again next week.